Doesn't it open up me? Oh, okay.
What's up, Proxy Cup?
Hello. Oh, I guess I'll start up. We have me, the beautiful host, Astrus. We have the other beautiful person here, Fug Nuggler.
Hi.
And TKrank, a little bit beautiful, more
Yeet!
cute. So here's your reveal. So we have a recap of season 4 and a reveal of the rosters for the season. So let's get into it.
All right.
So, starting off, we had the standings from season 4. IRL Sluts being number 1 in the regular season, Pornhub being number 2, Yeet Street number 3, Vortex 4th, Hashling Slashers 5th, Desolate 6th, Resources 7th, and Riddle Raiders 8th.
Yeah. So the last two teams, everyone doesn't know, Resource and Riddle Raiders, they did not return to the season because they were bottom 2. So only the top 6 teams, which are darkened, are actually going to. We're actually going to be going over the rosters. The other 2 teams have been eliminated from the league. So moving on to next slide, we have the season 4 playoffs. So every team that went to the playoffs or the returning teams are going to be going over. If we go through them quick, you can see that the 2 lower teams, Desolate and Hash, were promptly defeated in the first round, best of 5, by Yeet and Vortex, who were then both also defeated by the top 2 teams, IRL and Ornhub, who were pretty dominant throughout the season. IRL actually looking more dominant than Ornhub. But in the finals, Ornhub basically destroyed a tilting IRL Sluts.
Yeah, it was a pretty gruesome 3-1 series altogether. But yeah, Ornhub took the victory over season 4. And going to the next slide, we have all the 6 same teams that made it into playoffs are returning qualifying teams for season 5, all fighting for the Prophecy Cup win for the next season. I guess I should say the names would be IRL Sluts, Ornhub, Desolate, Hashlinging, Vortex, and instead of Yeet Street, we have twitch.tv/jbzits.
New reveal, boys. It's a name change. We're coming at you. To be revealed shortly.
Reveal. Check him out, by the way. Really good streamer.
Yeah, top tier.
Moving on to the first team's roster, we have Ornhub 2.0.
So for Ornhub, we have in the top lane, Akuma Shinigami. He's a gold 4 player. He's a new player actually to the league, from what I know. I haven't seen him at all. So it's good to see what he's playing. For jungle, we have Overraid, the MVP for season 4. Diamond 5 God. He kind of rolled over all the junglers last season. Made him big boy MVP. For mid lane, we have returning Hamlet again. He's a D1 mid laner. Probably, or not even probably, I'm pretty sure he was the best mid laner next to Sounds last season. Looked very solid, was very solid, and hopefully he's solid again this season.
Yeah, no big spoilers, but as of right now, Sounds is not on any rosters, so it's going to be a big if anyone's going to be able to challenge Hamlet in the mid lane this split as well.
Yes. For AD carry, we have another newcomer that we haven't seen, Svensson, a gold 5 AD carry. Yet again, hopefully he's a good player. We haven't seen anything from him. And for the support, we have Forever Alone, who came in halfway through the season, actually supported me the whole season. And for gold 2, he's actually valued. He played very well. In my opinion, playing being one of the best supports in the league. So yeah, going into the next team though, we have IRL Sluts, the runner-ups for season 4. Top lane, we have Reinhardt, Von Musen, Josefumi, whatever name you want to go by. He was the starting top laner for Ornhub last season, and well, actually, he was the starting support at the very start until Bags left and this other player left, and now he's the starting top laner for them, and now starting top laner for IRL Sluts. Played very well in all roles he played, so good to see him back on the team. For jungle, we have Soto, a returning player from IRL Sluts. He played up until the finals very consistently, very solid. He probably the second best jungler in the league. Very solid player. Hopefully he does the same exact thing. For mid lane, we have Hyman Blake. If I remember correctly, he was the sub for IRL for the whole season because Sounds took over until
Yeah.
Sounds had a bedtime. But yeah, what I've seen, he's been a solid player too. Nothing breaks some of the IRL players except for Edsy.
Yeah, this guy's been in the server since almost the beginning, even before they were called IRL. When they were Extra Life, he was their mid, and he was pretty solid, so I think he's going to do some good stuff.
Yes, from what I heard, he's a great player. So, for the AD carry player is me, Astrus.
What?
I was on Pornhub last season, now I'm here. And, I mean, I won last season, so what can I say? You have anything to say? No. And for support, we have Daddy Nahor, Darth Nahor, Daddy just on the roster, but he's back in the support. Played the whole season, and he is the captain. He is the best support in my opinion throughout the whole season. I don't know about you guys, but played the best out of all of them.
Yeah, he's pretty solid, and this IRL team is now much more balanced. So I think their upside is even higher than they used to be last year without Sounds.
Yeah, I mean it's obviously a downgrade the mid lane, but I think Blake's pretty solid, and they got a pretty big upgrade in ADC and top. I think, especially top lane.
Especially top lane.
Yeah.
This team definitely looks very solid, especially just looking at like the ranks. They look really good.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next team, we have the rebranded. This is Yeet Street last season, Twitch TV / Jabezus.
Yeah, and got a bunch of roster swaps for y'all for this team. As for the top laner, surprisingly, we've got Joe Seiden. No one expected that, but this guy much improved from his inception into the league in season 2, and so he's going to be a pretty solid top laner. Jungle, we've got Ropey, formerly IRL slut and extra life player, always known as a really solid jungler and lots of map pressure, so he's going to have big things coming. Mid lane, Charlie Smells, season 3 MVP, no, season 2 MVP, sorry, and always known as a top 2 mid in the league, just behind Sounds. AD carry, we got TKrank, heard he's pretty good.
I don't know about that guy. Wait, hold up.
Sometimes he has bad Kai'Sa games, but I think he's pretty good overall. Is their main shot caller, is their captain. Not technically, but
the love of my life.
Yes, the lover. And Sharkbait 54 as support. Can't go wrong with this guy. He's going to be worth his value.
I think Sharkbait's probably the highest value support from last season that I saw returning. Like, you said you thought Nahor was probably the best support, but I think for his points, Sharkbait's by far the best.
Yeah, Sharkbait is...
I saw him dump on mid-plat supports all the time. He's pretty good.
He's a solid player. I mean, especially in like tournament settings, he's a solid player.
I like the Twitch chat reaction to Sharkbait. That was pretty classic. But yeah, Trier's going to be a sub for this season. His IRL life's too busy, so getting an upgrade, PogChamp. Haha. Jokes. Yeah, next team here, Vortex. So they have been in the league for at least 2 seasons now. So they were Royal Era in season 3, and they placed 3rd. They lost to IRL in the playoffs, and in season 4 as Vortex, they lost to IRL by forfeit. But yeah, I think these guys, if they put their minds to it, they can be a very solid team. Starting off with Rexalis in the top lane. He's always been a really good top laner in the league. Always likes to play those carries like Gnar, like the Camille. He's pretty solid. Loker in the jungle. He's a hard carry jungler. Is the soul behind this team really, and he's been around for a while. Plays a lot of different champions. Mid laner, we've got Kurama. He had a couple starts last season, but they decided to go with other mids just because I guess they weren't too super successful with him. But they're going back to him after Pickaxe and Kayutso, I guess, no longer fit in the roster. So Kuruma, I remember he played Azir once or twice. And then we've got Isan. So this guy is totally new, and he D580 carry, and he's for sure an upgrade on Cresbo, just based off of rank. So with Manwalrus supporting him, I think they can be a pretty good team. I think they'll definitely make playoffs, but we'll have to see how far they can go from there.
Yes, in my opinion, this team is a solid team. from Loker, Rexalis. They have a Diamond and Plat 2 bot lane, but I'm not super convinced. I mean, hey, teams come and go. Some teams are great, some teams are bad. So I'm looking out for them next season.
Yeah, they've got a solid core. Now let's see how the new players will integrate into this roster.
Yeah.
And last two teams.
Yeah. Next, we got the Hashling Slashers. Hash had a okay season last split. Obviously, all the teams here made it to playoffs, but their actual playoff performance, I don't think, was exactly what they're looking for. In the top lane, they have Freshburger, who joined the team halfway through last season. He's a pretty well-known Ornn tank player, really solid for his points. I think a quote that was said about him for Adam, who was on his team last season, was that he basically never gets solo killed. Like, just super solid top lane rock for the team, and pretty valuable at plat 5 points. Up next, we have Dax Reaper X, who's a new player for the team. Dax Reaper is basically following in Adam Goodman's footsteps as being a Lee Sin main as well. Outside of that, I don't know too much about him as he's a new player here, but D5 is definitely pretty solid. Next is actually Adam Goodman himself, who is returning, but actually role swapping over to the jungle position. He, again, just like Freshburger, swapped to the team about halfway through the season. He's been a big leader. I've heard lots of people talking about him on the team, specifically talking about his shot calling and bringing like really good atmosphere. So even though he is role swapping, and I'm not sure how good he'll be on the mid lane, I think he's going to be still really helpful to the team as a mental point of view. Moving on to the ADC, we have another new player, Coco the Dragon. From looking him up, he doesn't seem to actually really main ADC. His most played is Jhin, but basically everything else is like top laners and shit. So I mean, Plat 2 is decent for this league. I'm just really going to have to see how he performs in ADC, because obviously it's pretty easy to ban out someone who only plays like one champion in your role. And then next is Fiery Kev, another new player for the team. This guy, on the other foot, has a shit ton of games played so far this season. His top 5 most played, all supports with over 50 games. He's got melee supports, he knows the Lulu gen, all that shit. I think as a counter to Coco, this guy's going to have a pretty big champion pool and it's going to be hard to ban out. And D5, especially in the support position, I think is really highly ranked.
Yeah, this team, I think it's just Vortex. They look like they'd be a solid team together. I mean, just by offer ranks alone, you don't know much about at least like 3 of the players here. But yeah, again, on paper, it looks like a solid roster. They could do well. Like I said, yeah, teams do well, teams do bad. Just kind of coin flip.
And is this guy now the highest rated support in the league currently? Is he our only D5 support?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how, like, since support and top are generally pretty low point value, that we'll have to see like the impact that a D5 support can have.
Moving on to the next team, we have Desolate. Desolate came, I believe they were 6th last season, so the last team to qualify for playoffs, so the lowest rated team to qualify to playoffs. They're definitely looking to make some upgrades here. And moving on to their first player, they have Blazenhot. Blazenhot was actually originally a substitute for Royal Era underneath Loker back in Season 3. He ended up starting actually for Hash and then switching over to Desolate, where he replaced their jungler Eat My Apples. But here he's going to be playing top, which I haven't seen much for him in the top lane. As I said, he's been jungling on other teams for the last few seasons, been a substitute for a decently large part of it as well. Having a lot of team, having a lot of connections and playing on other teams is obviously good, because he can bring like shot calling, those type of things. But again, like, he's role swapping, and I don't know how good he's going to be in the top lane. Moving on to the jungle, their jungler actually left this morning, according to them. So they have a new jungler, but I just managed to get the rank off him before. So basically they're deciding between a couple of D5 junglers right now. So I don't have too much to say about it. Moving on to the mid lane, we have Sindelian returning. He's been a starting mid for Desolate for 3 seasons now. He's been a high performer up there with Charlie Smells. I think most people would rate him as slightly less consistent than Charlie, but he's been pretty much around the same rating as him. He's been a really good performer the last seasons. Obviously, pretty disappointing season last split, and he's looking to improve the team from the captain position again. Moving on to ADC, they have another returning face with Sindelian, Blame My Support. He's been the ADC again for several seasons. He did step down for a while to the substitute position. I'm not really sure why, but he returned again for playoffs at the end of the season last split, and he's staying as the starting ADC, so he's really looking to prove himself, I think, this split. Then moving on to support, they have Taziel, who's a plat 5 support, running out their team. He seems to be a top mid main. I don't really know too much about him. He's been playing support pretty recently from when he joined the team, but I don't know too much of what to expect to him. He's pretty sure he's role swapping, so, and I don't know him before, so I don't have too much input to give on him.
Yeah, this season, for at least the main 6 teams that we have, or that are coming back, I think it's say like 3 or 4 of these teams have very solid rosters on paper. Can't say much about, because like at least 2 or 3 of their players are not no names, but names we haven't heard around here a lot, which is actually good to have new players coming in. But yet again, like I said, teams that are good on paper, we don't know. Coin flip.
Yeah. So moving on next, I have a quick rank distribution to show. So basically, these are just the points of all the teams displayed for each role. So you can really see, looking at the white bar, which is the average team, that the average team is pretty mid-jungle focused, being the top 2 roles in average, especially with mid lane being a big spike. Obviously, there's only 2 teams here that are above it, but with Ornhub being way above on mid lane, and Twitch TV Jabezus being the most average team overall here, points-wise, but you can really see there's a big dip, especially in top and support, where most teams seem to have their anchor players. And if we move on slightly, like click one more time, it goes to the, oh yeah, you already have it up in the stream. Okay, so we have the roles compared by the average. So basically this is all the teams' role points are actually divided by the average points for that role. So you can kind of see anyone's above the white line, they're above average in their role. Anyone's below the white line is below average. So you can see, I think mid lane's going to be a pretty big swing lane, because although there are several mid laners that are around average, I think, as I said before, Ornhub has a huge advantage in the mid lane over the average team here now. Now that Sounds is in here, he's pretty much untouched up there at the D1 rating. And then additionally, I think top lane looks pretty swingy, with only 2 teams being above the actual average there, with Desolate and Vortex, and all the other teams basically being below the average mark on top lane as well.
Yeah, you're looking at like specifically the Ornhub role average, like they have such a huge spike in mid lane, but they have such a low with the AD carry, which is, it kind of offsets like the big spike in mid lane. So hopefully, like just specifically Ornhub, like Hamilton can pull it together, because if you're looking going off just like based off of this alone, like their top lane should get rolled and their AD carry should get rolled. So like this is gonna be interesting to watch, especially with just the mid lane having to see if he has an advantage and just push it everywhere.
Yeah, Hamlet and Overrate especially gonna have to do a crazy good job of making sure that their top and bot don't get rolled.
As returning the team that won last season, hopefully they can pull it together, because these 2 players have to play out of their mind, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's the one last year, so this year it's just gonna be even harder, basically.
Hey, hold up. Come on.
Hey man, I heard it from Overrate's mouth this afternoon. Verbatim.
So,
keeping all that in mind, let's move on to our next segment, where we did some quick power rankings just from looking at the teams based on everything that we've shown you guys now is basically the only mission we have. So starting from our last pick, let's pop that up quick. So I selected Ornhub as my lowest team. TKrank selected Hashling Slackers, and Astrus selected Desolates.
Hashling Slackers.
Yes, Slackers. Appropriate with where they've been rated, I guess. So my big thing I'm going to say for Ornhub is basically, yes, they have, as I said, like by far the strongest mid laner, but their jungler was listed as like pretty much average, and then their top support and ADC are almost all the worst in the league in points wise, or like bottom 2.
Right.
Just like looking at just the rank, like it's all gold players. So Hamlet's gonna have to put on his fucking carry pants if he really wants to carry.
Yeah.
Like I know Overrate at D5 is probably undervalued considering he was the MVP from last season, but like it's gonna be pretty crazy, especially with the meta, with the skull trap change and everything becoming even more team oriented. Just having mid priority, I think, might not be enough to really push this team through. So that's why I have them rated as my bottom pick, because I think they're pretty exploitable.
Yeah, I have Hash just because I think right now they're the least proven roster. I think it's between them and Desolate almost. They have a couple of returning players, but ultimately it's just up to see how their team is going to mesh.
And I should have chose Desolate because one, they don't have a jungler, so that's up in the air. So they only have 4 players to go off of, and in my opinion, they have one of the lower tier bot lane, except for Ornhub. And just off of that, I think beforehand, playing my support wasn't that well. So I think if they lose through bot lane, they'll lose the rest of the map. Because, yet again, I don't know how to do the jungler, but if their bot lane loses, I think the rest of the map loses. So that's why I have them in last.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to our next ratings. I also have Desolate
okay, there we go.
as my second lowest. TKrank has Vortex. This is the third time we've seen them as his second lowest. And then Astrus also has Hash there. So I agree with basically the points Astrus said for Desolate. My big thing was they've kept a couple of the players the same from the team that came in 6th last season. So it's not too convincing for me. I don't see any like huge upgrades or like screaming upgrades to me on their roster. So I'm just not really sure where their power points are going to be, which is why I have them rated low.
Yeah, I think Vortex ultimately comes down to how hard they're going to tilt and how well they're going to mesh and how like motivated they'll be. Just because their core with Rexalis, Loker, and Man Walrus are super good, I think they can be a top 4 team. But if they tilt or if their 80 carry and mid are not as good as last season, then they could definitely be a 5 out of 6 here.
And I said Hash because I think, like I said, for the majority of the teams that we have here, there are a lot of coin flips because you don't know a lot of players. So I think, which I'm pointing out, Freshburger is probably one of the lower top laners in this league, just in the teams that we've seen right now. And a bunch of unproven players, especially with a D5 support, like you have a bunch of points there. I don't think they're going to be as strong as they could be. So yeah, I put them 5th.
Yeah. So moving on to our next ones, we see Ornhub showing up again, Vortex showing up again, and Hash showing up again. So these seem to be fairly consensus to be the bottom-ish teams, especially I'd say Vortex so far, and especially Hash, I think seems to be our bottom team we've put. I again put them down there because I don't really know too much about Dax Reapers, Coco, and Flay. As I said, Coco doesn't even seem to really main his role. Adam Goodman is role swapping. So, I mean, two of their higher rated players are already role swapping, and then I'm not too convinced that, or I don't even haven't seen them play for the other ones, so I don't really want to put them too high.
Oh, bit rate seems low. Sorry, guys. Hopefully it's going to get fixed shortly. But I put Ornhub as my 4th seed just because I know how much of a beast Overrate and Hamlet are. However, the rest of their roster is quite like I don't know how good they are, but they're definitely lower elo, so I'm gonna have to assume that they're not as good as the other laners. So if they can do a lot of work, maybe they'll be better and they'll prove me wrong. But right now they're gonna be a 4 for me.
And I put Vortex just because I have the same thing I've said for the last 2 teams. Coin flip, they have new players I don't know, and I know Loker and Rexalis are kind of a little bit on the tilty side, so I don't think they'll be at least on the top half.